Good morning, MAB Elementary, third years. We're going to be looking at decimal fractions this morning, and this is going to be lesson 5 in decimal fractions. So again, I'm going to show you some examples of how to do it. I'm going to send you the worksheet for you guys to complete on your own, and then you can check them with your moms and dads, and they'll give you the information as to how you did. And again, Mr. T is going to give you the lessons. So here we go. You remember, let's go back and review a little bit. We talked about most of the numbers that we've been working with so far have been whole numbers. Units, whole numbers. Tens, whole numbers. Hundreds, whole numbers. All in the simple family. And then just the other day in a lesson, I went back and reviewed with you some of the things that we already talked about with regard to fractions. And Mr. Smith has done a lot of work with you on fractions. And so we know that we can take a whole number, like a 1, and we can divide that into fractions, parts, 4/4. So 1 whole can be divided into parts, number fractions, 4/4. And so the denominator of the fraction here is 4. That makes it the 4th family. And we've got 4 parts of it, which is the numerator, and that equals 1 whole. So if we can divide whole numbers into number fractions, Mr. T showed you last week that we could divide whole numbers into decimal fractions as well. And you may recall, 1 can equal 10/10. 1 equals 10/10. That's a whole. 1/10 can be written 0.1, 1/10. And we went over the fact that 2/10 can be written 0.2. And again, by review, we talked about the importance of the decimal point. Because when you see that decimal point in a number, that means that everything going that way to the right of the decimal point is a fraction, and everything to the left of the decimal point is a whole. So if I have 2/10 here, you can say 2/10 is the number fraction written decimal 2/10. You hear that TH on the end? Well, all of the decimal fraction place values have a TH, tenths, in it. So I can write that as a mixed number as well. 3 and 2/10 equals 3 wholes, decimal 2, 3/10. So this is by way of review as to the work that we did the other week. I want to give you one other thing I think we did last week. All right, so I said we could go to the next place value in the decimals, and we could do 3 and 3/100ths. Hundredths, say that, 3 and 3/100ths, mixed number, and that equals 3 decimal 0 in the tenths place, but 3 in the hundredths place. 3 and 3/100ths. 3 and 3/100ths. It's the same. Number fractions are decimal fractions written with a decimal. Decimal fractions can be written as mixed number fractions. And that's what we're going to do in these exercises today. So let's start with Introductory to Decimals, Lesson 5. First one we're going to do is writing numbers as decimals and then converting them into their equivalents, means the equal number, in mixed number fractions. All right. So if I have 5 and 1/10, read that to yourself, 5 and 1/10, that equals 5 and 1/10 equals the same. 62 and 4/10 can be written 62 wholes and 4/10 as a fraction. Equivalent, the same. And take you one more. Watch the trick in this one. This is 11 and 11/100ths, two place values in the decimals. And that can be written 11 wholes and 11/100ths. Exactly the same. So you can always convert a decimal number to a number fraction number because they're the same. Well, now in lesson 6, introductory decimals, lesson 6, we're going to go the other way. All right. So 3 and 8/10. Could we write that as a decimal fraction? Sure, we could. A decimal mixed number, 3 and, that's what that decimal says, and 8/10. The first place value in decimals is tenths. Can we write 4 and 22/100ths as a mixed number with a decimal fraction in it? Sure we can. 4 and 22/100ths. I don't say the decimal place value until I get finished reading the number. 4 and 22/100ths is the same as 4 and 22/100ths. Here's a tricky one. It's the only really tricky one, but I'll show it to you. And this will be particularly for you third-year guys who are advanced in your math understanding. 1 and 17/10. Can I write that as a decimal fraction? I can. Watch this. 1 and 17/10. Well, let's convert that. Isn't that really, you remember when we have an improper fraction with Mr. Smith and doing the whole the number fractions? Whenever we had an improper fraction, we had to look for the whole. So in 17/10, what do I have? I have 1/10, one whole. So that really equals 2, doesn't it? And 7/10. Because I take out the one whole, which is the 10/10, I have 7/10 left over. So if I write this as 1 and 17/10, I have to convert it. First of all, the improper fraction has to become a proper fraction. And now 2 and 7/10 is easy to write as a decimal, 2 and 7/10. That was a tricky one. So we're going to, in lesson 5 and 6, convert decimal fractions into number fractions, and they're going to be some mixed numbers. And in the next lesson, we're going to convert number fractions into decimal fractions. And that's your work for this week in decimal fractions. See you later, alligators. Mr. T signing out.